Good morning, everyone. And good afternoon for those of you on the continent. I'm really thrilled to have everyone here today. And I'd like to say welcome to Africa Week and to welcome to our session, War Dramas in Cross-Cultural Context, Ethiopia, DRC, and the United States. I'm going to provide a bit of context before I introduce our panelists. I want us to think about how theatrical productions are activist interventions. In the United States, we tend to think of plays as entertainment, but in many countries, theater is a volatile tool for promoting social change. Today's panel, Zerihun Birihanu, Manyazawal Indisha, and Mbala Nkanga, will focus on a single play in multinational context. We will see how a play written by an African-American author resonates as it goes across different cultural and geographical terrains. Ruined by Lynn Nottage won the 2009 Pulitzer Prize. The play centers around the character of a middle-aged woman named Mama Nadi, who runs a bar and a brothel in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. She considers herself to be a businesswoman because her establishment services government soldiers and military leaders. The women who populate Mama Nadi's bar survive at the mercy of men who come and go against a landscape of ongoing warfare. Mother Courage by Bertolt Brecht is a play that is also about this same topic. In the end, Mama Nadi's humanity is challenged as she comes to terms with what she has gained and lost by managing an establishment based on exploitation. Nottage wrote the play after conducting in-person interviews with Congolese women, and in a sense, the play is a docudrama. Even though it's been produced multiple times in the United States, it has gained minimal traction on the African continent. Today, 3 theater directors, 2 from Ethiopia and 1 from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, will comment on the meaning of the play in their respective countries and how it might impact audiences. We ask, how are themes of war and ethnic strife, which emerge in the play Ruined, relevant to ongoing struggles in each of your countries? I'm pleased to begin to welcome Zerihu Birihanu. He's a lecturer and a former UMAP scholar from Addis Ababa University. Manyazawal Indisha, who is the director of the Ethiopian National Theater, and my colleague Mbala Nkanga from the School of Music, Theater, and Dance at the University of Michigan, who is also in the Democratic Republic of the Congo as we speak. So I'll begin with Zerihun.
Thank you very much, Anita, and thank you very much for all of you to participate, for coming here to participate in such a wonderful discussion and conference. I'm very much delighted to speak about a well-known play by Lynn Nottage. It is called Ruined. I translate in Amharic as Fallaga. Coincidentally, this year marks the 100 years of the beginning of European form of theater in Ethiopia. I just want to speak a few words about that coincidence. In 1921, in September of 1921, the first European form of play was written by a man called Taklaharat Taklamarem, a man who was raised in Russia and trained in a military academy, wrote and staged the first European form of theater in Ethiopia. Taklaharat wrote a collection of fables to teach the then young Liji Yasu, who was a designated emperor of Ethiopia, for 3 years from 1916 to 23. His intention of writing the first play was amazing and intriguing for further discussion. I want to read a few lines from the play, introduction part, which is translated by Balaina Habune and published at the University of Leeds in African Theater Series. I want to read the lines just to give us a glimpse of how the European form of theater in Ethiopia began and how it's going today. In the introduction part, the Taklaharat wrote the following few lines. One day in between, I received an invitation letter from Ato Huri, the mayor of Addis Ababa. It is said, tonight we're going to present a theater performance at Ras Hotel, and we kindly request your permission to come and see our show. There had never been a play in our country before. Therefore, I went eagerly and in a hurry to see how they had managed to stage the performance. When I saw I saw was a band of singers and dancers, men and women, singing and dancing accompanied by drum, masinko, and traditional instruments. I had been saddened observing the upbringing of Leji Yasu. Now I got more sad watching how Ethiopians had been led to the road of modernity. I immediately realized the need to straighten up such leadership. I wished there and then to write an exemplary play. But I knew that I could not do it quickly because I was engaged fully with my work. Suddenly, an idea occurred to me. The idea was that it could be easily directed and presented if I used the animals in my earlier composition of fables as a character and gave them dialogue to speak to each other. I did that within a short time and was able to show it in the presence of the Crown Prince Rastafari at Terrace Hotel. That helped the printed book to be sold. Many people were looking for them, and with one day, about 300 books were sold. After this introduction, for the last 100 years, the Ethiopian theater have seen different levels of development. Many celebrated playwrights, directors, and performers have contributed significantly to its development, apparently created sometimes a hybrid, sometimes a new form of Ethiopian theater. One of the key features of the Ethiopian theater has been its use of vernacular language, which is of course related to the independence of the country. Amharic has been the main medium of staging theater, mainly in Addis Ababa until recent times. The use of vernacular language in one way supported the development of theatrical and cultural forms, and in another way, challenged the development and expansion of Ethiopian theater in the international stage. Developing multiple language used in the theater and creating international opportunities for the theater, for the Ethiopian theater, would be the main assignment while we celebrate the 100 years of beginning of European theater form in Ethiopia. Having said these few words about the beginning, and as we are celebrating the 100 years of the beginning of Ethiopian theater, I will go now to Ruined. As Professor Anita introduced, Ruined, which I call it Filaga, which is in Amharic, is a Pulitzer Prize winning play. It's written by Lynn Nataj. The play is about civil war and its repercussions in Democratic Republic of Congo. Set in a very small village and a small bar, it shows the struggle and survival of women in a war-torn society. Beyond everything, the play tries to craft a new form of mother courage, which Manezwal will talk about it later, in an African setting. By depicting the unparalleled challenges of civil war, Lynn tried to show the strengths of women, perhaps every human being in general, in such challenging situations. The idea is survival. War cannot be a very good thing, but not always. Sometimes there are situations where one can choose the prevalence of war and conflict for its continuing survival. Mama Nadi, the main character in the play, played by the well-known Ethiopian National Theatre actress Masarat Hiyot, she also performs in many plays, including Mother Courage, which is translated and directed by Manezo on the show. Mama Nadi is a wise, powerful, and surviving character in the middle of a civil war. Her life, along with the situation of other women and young soldiers, make the story of the play revolve. Now, I want to say a few things why I translated the play. I translated the play while I was a UMAPS fellow at the University of Michigan in 2018. During that time, and of course until now, a new political atmosphere has surrounded the Ethiopian social and political situation. A new Prime Minister, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, was elected as a Prime Minister of Ethiopia. The subsequent political situation happened after the coming of the new government, sparked a wave of conflict, internal displacement of people, and above all, a military insurgency and conflict in many parts of the country. The military confrontation between the rebel soldiers and the government created a tension among us. I am one of the Ethiopian citizens who is worried about such challenges and hope to create a platform for discussion and exchange. Then Ruin come along the way. I translated Ruin not only for its artistic quality and engaging story, but also for its theme that exceeds boundaries. If not controlled, the situation in Ethiopia cannot be different from the situation in Democratic Republic of Congo or any other war-torn country in the world for that matter. I hope that the translation of the play will create a significant dialogue and scholarship among us, and if not naive, to help stop such conflicts. I took a direct translation method to avoid any kind of misunderstanding or misinterpretation. I used the character original names and original setting, but subtly tried to give a contextual meaning. I hope that the meaning will give our audience to translate it to the Ethiopian situation. After translating the play, the rehearsal preparation took more than a year and a half. After all the challenges, it was hoped to be staged at the Ethiopian National Theatre, but the COVID pandemic interrupted everything in the theater. The University of Michigan African Studies Center supported the production and possible recording of the play's premiere to be screened at the University of Michigan. The support came from the interest of the university to develop collaboration between the African Studies Center and the Addis University College of Performing and Visual Arts. And now the Ethiopian National Theatre became another partner in the production of the play by extending the collaboration. I hope to continue talking about the play during our discussion time, but due to time restriction, I'm going to stop here and allow the screening of the rehearsal video. Even though it became impossible to screen the premiere of the play, I want to share you a rehearsal video recorded by Derhi and edited by Maniahal Banti. It's a 7-minute rehearsal video, which is recorded at the Addis University Cultural Center and the Ethiopian National Theatre. Let's take a look.
ሌላ ምን እንዳመጣውልሽ እንኳን ጠየቅሽኝ። ምን አመጣልህ? ይጅና መኪናውን ተመልከች። ገምቼ ልትለኝ ነው? ደግሞ ስላንቺ ማላሰማት እሷ ሁለቱንም በአንድ ሰው ይሰሩ ሰዎች መልክቱ የሚያቃጥለኝ ተጨማሪ ሁለቱን ላሳፈር። እባክሽ ሁለቱንም የአንድ ሰው ምግብ ስጫቸው። ጆሴፊን እሺ አሁንስ ነገርካቸው? አዎ በፍቅረኝነት ነው እና ሳሊማት ትንሽ መንደር ነው። እንደተረዳሁት ግን በመደፈሯ ምክንያት የአካባቢ ሰዎች ሊቀበሏት ፈቃደኛ አልተማረችም። ግን በፍጹም አታስቸግርሽም፣ አታስጨንቅሽም። እባክሽ ለአንድ ወር ያህል እንኳን ውሰጃትና ተመልከቻት። ደግሞ ምን እንገርሽ በጣም ጠንካራ ሰራተኛ ነች። ልጆቼ በአግባቡ ንጹህ እንዲሆኑና ስነ ስርዓት እንዲይዙ እፈልጋለሁ። አመሰግናለሁ ማዬ። አመሰግናለሁ ማዬ።
ሀገርሽ ነው። አንዱ ሰካራም ወታደር በተቻለው አቅም ራሱን የሁሉም ነገር ነፃ አውጪ አድርጎ ያስባል። የኔንም ጫማ እንዲሁ እዚህ ስመጣ አዲስ ጫማ መግዛት ሆነ እኮ ስራዬ።
እንደውም እድለኛ ነህ፣ የፈለገው ጫማን ብቻ ነው።
እውነትሽ ነው።
ስነስርዓት ወታደር ለመጫወት እየሞከረ ነው።
ለዛች ልጅ ጣዕም ሲል ምን አሳልፎ እንደሰጠ እንኳን አያውቅም። ታሳዝናለህ። መቼም ገበያ ላይ ስንት እንደሚያወጣ ሁላችንም እናውቀዋለን።
ከወር በፊት ማንም ዞር ብሎ የማያየው ድንጋይ ነበር። አሁን ግን ሁሉም እሱ ላይ ሆነ።
Thank you. Wow, that was amazing. You know, it's so funny seeing that footage because 1 year ago, I was there when they were doing that process in the National Theater. And that's something I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about. A lot of that footage was shot by my husband and then edited by Zerihun. And I'm very grateful to the African Center for allowing me to do this, to be able to go and see and experience and continue to collaborate with Zerihun around this kind of theatrical activity. One of the questions has come up about ethnic strife. And I think it's very interesting that when we were first staging the play, we had there was, of course, ethnic strife in Ethiopia, but not at the level that it developed to in the year afterwards. And also that 1 year ago, we were there kind of like in this blissful world of creating art and theater in a common space, thinking about how it could be used to incite conversations about ethnic strife. Then COVID hit, people had to pull in and not be able to do the kind of work that we think is so important in terms of inciting conversations through the plays that we do. So Zerihun, it was really beautiful to see that compilation of the work that you had done. I know that it was staged both at the university as well as at the National Theater. It was wonderful to see the actors. At the point in which we had to stop production, we had just begun to integrate music into the work on the stage. And so to see that live again is bringing back a lot of those memories. I do want to say that the project that we were doing at that time involved bringing together theater scholars from the University of Michigan with theater scholars from Addis Ababa University in order to think about how we can continue to write histories of Ethiopia. I know that Zerihun has an interest in trying to specifically find literature in both Amharic and in English that will talk to how ethnic strife can be resolved or its impact on communities who continue to engage with warfare. I hope that that is, and so it was wonderful to see those visuals in that way. So at this point, I think I'd like to turn it over. Oh, I want to just put a little bit of framing. Ruined is also based, it follows the structure somewhat of Bertolt Brecht's Mother Courage, which is a drama that takes place during the 30 Years' War in Germany. In that play, we have, in the Mother Courage play, we have another woman entrepreneur, a woman who is like running a business off of the devastation of war as well. And Manyazewal Indisha directed that play. So during my time in Ethiopia, I was able to see his show, which was an amazing interpretation of the play through the lens of through the lens of Ethiopian history. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Manyazawal Indisha to have him talk a little bit about his perceptions of the play and his own project with Mother Courage. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to say a few words about the 65th year of the foundation of the Ethiopian National Theatre. We actually celebrated last month. And during our celebration, we showed some extracts from different plays by our famous playwrights. One is Sagai Gabramadan, and some maybe 25 or actually 30 years back, he wrote, and Abata Makra, director, mounted the play at the City Hall Theatre. And it's about the war between Ethiopia and Eritrea. At that time, it was the military government, and Sagai, I think he was inspired by Atul Fugard's play, The Blood Knot, about two brothers from the same mother, but different fathers. One is black, the other one is fair-skinned, and they're close, living together, helping each other, but at the same time, there is this tension because of their skin tone. So I think the guy adapted this play to show a fighter from the Eritrean side, a freedom fighter, and an Ethiopian soldier. So the Eritrean freedom fighter was a prisoner. So the two of them are the only characters in the play. So instead of the conflict, Sagai tried to show, to actually stress their brotherhood, their similarity, their dilemmas, and so on. So because of that, I think the play was only shown once or maybe twice, and then it was banned because the military government wanted to portray the Eritrean Liberation Front fighters as negative, as people who wanted to disrupt the country and so on. So we extracted a few scenes from this play and showed it to our public just for one day. We plan to keep doing it, but we don't know, maybe the bureaucratic situation may not allow us, but we'll see. So now, Mother Courage. When I was a student in Germany, I saw Brecht's Mother Courage in Berlin. And since then, I wanted to do it, but probably the right time didn't appear. So I think it was in 2017 that the ethnic strife in our country came to a head, and there were demonstrations, violence, burning of factories, and so on. So I said, maybe this is a time to do this play. And I adapted it to our situation. Again, the background was the war between Ethiopia and Eritrea. It took 30 years, just like the European war. So I had this dilemma of keeping the Brecht techniques, the alienation effect, but at the same time, I wanted the play to directly communicate to the audience. So I somehow tried to compromise, not to totally ignore Brecht's techniques, but at the same time, to also make the audience feel the situation at that time, the war and the problem of the mother. And the other point was Brecht presented the mother very critically. He wanted to say that this woman is trying to profit from the war, and she's an entrepreneur, but she's losing her children, but still she wants to stay in business. So instead of stressing that part, I wanted to show her being the victim of a situation that is beyond her control. So that was my approach. Now coming to Brilliant, Zarihun talked to me about his idea and he gave me his translation. I liked it very much because it was directly showing the problem to the audience. It was a realistic play. And I felt of all the plays I've seen in Addis, about the situation, war situations. This was the most effective, I thought, and I felt that the National Theatre has a duty to cooperate with the region. In fact, the National Theatre and the Addis Ababa University have already agreed to work together. So this is going to be the first major cooperation, which I believe will succeed. Now, we will open it in Addis here, the National Theatre, but my idea is to take it to the regions, if possible, to places where these ethnic conflicts have taken place, because it's more relevant to show it to those people than the people in the city here. But of course, it's not very simple. Maybe a bit dangerous, and I'm not an adventurer to go into war zones and endanger the lives of our actors and technicians. But I believe the Ministry of Peace, we have a Ministry of Peace, will cooperate with us and probably will help us to find the place where it's a relatively less risky place, and we can mount our play, show it to the audience, and at the same time discuss the situation. It's not only an entertainment or where people feel sad and leave, but they have to discuss what their problem is. So it becomes a starting point for discussion, for more understanding of the different ethnic groups who are in conflict. So that's my idea.
Thank you. Thank you, Manyazawal. That was wonderful. It's wonderful to hear that the production will continue. At this point, I'd kind of like to take the production back to its roots, because it's really interesting to think about how it's being evolved in the Ethiopian context, but it was written about the Congo. It was written in the Congo. She interviewed people from the Congo. And I was discussing this with my colleague, as I said, Dr. Mbala Nkanga, and he told me that he had also pursued the idea of doing a production in the Congo, and that it was difficult to realize it because of the ethnic strife going in that country. So at this point, I would like to introduce Mbala and have him talk about his perspective, both on the origins of the play, and then on how the play has evolved into an American script, because remember, the warfare is being viewed through the lens of an African-American woman who is not from the Congo, which is always interesting to me, and then how that might play back to people from the nation where the strife originated. So at this point, I'd like to turn this over to Dr. Mbala Nkanga.
Thank you, Anita. I don't know if it's possible for me to share a short PowerPoint where I put together some of the ideas that I would like to share with you. If it's possible, let's do it. Let me put it forward. I don't know, where do we do this? Let me ask for share screen. I think you can see the screen, right?
Yes, Mbala, we can see the screen at this point, yes.
Yeah, so yeah, I heard the Ethiopian experience, and I saw the rehearsals, and it touches me to see whenever a situation that is from your own country that is translated and produced elsewhere, it touches me a lot. But I would like to put a little bit of context before I come back to the play itself. As you can see in this map, the Democratic Republic of the Congo is in Central Africa. It's a big country, as people know, and it is interesting to know that that country has a territory of 2,345,408 square kilometers, which translate to 905,567 square miles. And it's run throughout by the Congo River, which is long for about 4,700 kilometers. The population is estimated a little bit over 9 million people. And the capital city, Kinshasa, where I'm now, has about 12 million inhabitants. It's hard to present the wars in the Congo because Congo has always been in a state of war since its inception in 1885. Even the independence in 1960 did not help stop the war tendency of the country. But today's war can be approached in three different stages. The first stage started in 1996 and lasted until 1997 with the toppling of Marshal Mobutu Sese Seko and the arrival of Laurent Désiré Kabila to power. Another one started in 1998 and lasted to 2003 with some of the people who helped Kabila to come to power and turning against him. We all know that he was assassinated in 2001. And then there is another one that started in 2004 and still going on as we speak. And each of these phases has its reasons, its characteristics, and it's all told of humanitarian crisis. I'm not going to get into all these details because I'll leave these to political scientists and historians and others to deal with. But what I know is that this war that started basically in 1996 is characterized by denials of all the belligerent. I want you to keep that in mind, denials of belligerents. No one wants to take responsibility. No one wants to recognize their part in this unending war. So as we speak now, there is this general map that I found on the internet, which basically gives us a sense of what are the hot zones that we are talking about here. You would see that it's around in the North Kivu and the South Kivu, but it can also be seen elsewhere. Basically around the Masisi region and Bukavu, as well as in the southern part of South Kivu. That's where this war is taking place, and that's where you have a lot of violence against women, against children, and also against men. We don't talk very much about the violence against men, but we totally talk about the rape against women, but there are also men who are raped on a daily basis in this area. And this is the result of the one that was the most vicious one, the one that was called the Second Congo War between 2001 and 2003. It was extremely vicious. That war brought together many other countries, and they fought in the Congo in various positions. But keep in mind, there is always the factor of denial as we speak. So you have from South Africa to Namibia, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Angola, and so forth. All these countries had stakes in this war. All these countries had troops at some point or the other on the ground in the Congo. Although they removed their troops later on, but still they have mercenaries and other proxies fighting for them in the Congo. Paradoxically, in a country torn by these wars and civil unrest, there are few voices from the artists against the violence. And this is very paradoxical. Artists in general, and especially theater makers, are silent in general. When they speak, mainly it's about asking for the UN forces to leave the country. You hear a lot of music on that. And basically that's it. No major play is being performed or being made or produced on that. But there are a few exceptions, but those exceptions only deal with the phenomenon of child soldiers. That's what most theater artists in the Congo talk about, child soldiers. And usually they use foreign playwright like Jean-Marie Piem, a Belgian, wrote Toreador, which is a play about Eastern Europe, but that was adapted to the situation in the Congo. And then you have Amadou Kourouma's Quand on refuse, on dit non, which is a play about child soldiers in Côte d'Ivoire, which was adapted here in the Congo as to reflect the situation of child soldiers in the Congo. Maybe it's because of the funding, because most of the funding in these conditions come from NGOs, and most NGOs are afraid of touching the situation of violence against women in Eastern Congo. Most NGOs are afraid of touching the humanitarian crisis up front. They prefer to act on the ground, but they don't want to put themselves into the media. So as we go back to Lean Notage play, Lean Notage play is, I think, exceptional work for us Congolese. For us intellectuals, for us theater practitioner, it's interesting, but at the same time, very difficult to produce in the conditions of the Congo today. There have been many attempts to have it produced. The last attempt was by the American Embassy in 2016 with Lynn Notage herself in attendance. And that was the only performance that was produced, presented in public most of the time. And the play was basically, I would say, silently banned so that no one wants to try it again. I tried to do it myself with a translation in Lingala, which is the local language here in Kinshasa, but I would discourage to do it for many reasons, which we might talk about if you are interested in the discussion. The play itself is about illicit business, and the
Okay, Mbala, we're losing your connection. Hi. I'm hoping that was an amazing. I think we might have lost his connection at this point. So I think that we should possibly open it up for the general group discussion, because I'd really like to hear when Mbala comes back, which I'm sure he will, the discussion of the Ethiopian theater directors about how they might. Are you back, Mbala? Hi, I think we might have lost him. I think right now we should go to the open discussion, and that way when Mbala comes back, we can continue the conversation. Is it possible to see all of the presenters in the same window? Okay, I see everyone. So you've heard a little bit from Mbala about how challenging. There he is. Hello, you're back. We've heard about, sorry, Mbala, we lost you. Anyway, we've heard about how this has played out in the Congo. And I think it's interesting, Manyazawal, that you're now interested in producing this and touring it to the regions. How do you think you will work with opposition that might arise or violent circumstances around the presentation of ethnic strife? Unmute, please, Manyazawal. You are muted.
Yeah, okay, no, sorry. I haven't yet worked out the details of how we go about it, but I believe the Ministry of Peace has an interest in resolving these conflicts. So we work closely with the ministry and find places that are less in conflict at the moment. Probably we may go to places which has already gone through the conflict, but still the problem is not that visible, but maybe it still goes on underneath. So we don't go into war areas, that will be very dangerous, but to areas which is relatively calm, but where the problem is not solved yet. So my belief is we'll go to such places, prearrange it with the regional government and the situation. So it will be a controlled situation where we show it to the audience and conduct a discussion. So I have to work the details probably with the Ministry of Peace people.
Maybe can I add something with that?
Of course.
Yeah, beyond the works of the Ethiopian National Theatre, because when Professor Mbala was talking about how it is impossible to translate display into the Congo atmosphere, that was also my concern when I was translating from English to Amharic. So when I was speaking earlier, I said that I use direct translation method because if I adapt for example, the names, the people in the conflict, the soldiers or the government soldiers, it will also be again another difficult to stage, even to try to stage it here at the Ethiopian National Theatre. So one of the key methods we used was to translate it directly and then show, when you see the performance, it is about the Congo Civil War, it is about the situation in Congo, but still again, you can get the meaning inside. So there is a small pathway through which we can also communicate with the audience that there is a story in Congo, but again, letting them to translate it the situation that's here. So that's also one option beyond what Manazwal was saying, communicating with the Ministry of Peace and the Ethiopian National Theatre.
So do you have any responses? Mbala, can you still be heard?
Yes, I think you can hear me.
Okay, so what advice would you offer to our commentary about trying to stage the work in Ethiopia?
Well, I think that the problem here, I would start with that. The problem here in Congo is that lineage was very powerful and very specific. And the characters basically respond to the description of the people who were involved with those violence. And those people are the ones who are in power now. And that's the problem here, that the play is extremely realistic in portraying those people. I can personally identify them by their personal names. And that's what is delicate about this play, and especially, and she did very little to hide the names and just change few things, few syllables here and there. But basically, those are the people who are involved in the conflict, and especially the conflict of 2001 to 2003 and 2004. That's one problem. As for Ethiopia, I think that it is important for us as theater people to find a way to express ourselves in a different setting, because presenting this play in different setting, which is an African setting, it is possible to have people read about it, hear about it, and talk about the events, the plight of those victims in the conflict. That's my take in it. And personally, I encourage the effort by Zerim because of that. I'm frustrated here because I'm unable to do that, and to see a colleague do it elsewhere, which is not far from here. And I'm sure many Congolese will see it there, especially those who live in Ethiopia. It feels good to hear that. That would be my take on this.
I think two things have come out of the conversation. One is the idea of translation and when a piece can actually be done somewhere or not. I mean, I think that Manyazewal, by doing Bertolt Brecht's play, is addressing the same topic, but not by naming the individuals who are actually in country. And that's a strategy we see playing out across theater often. I know that you've also done a production of Antigone during this time of strife in Ethiopia in the National Theater. And that is another drama, another war drama, but it's distant. It's not about actually what's happening in Tigray and in Addis right now. It's like you look at it through a metaphorical lens, and somehow it makes it more possible to address the topic. One of the questions that's come out in the chat and otherwise is this discussion of women. I mean, it's a little bit, you have to dance around, I feel somewhat, this conversation about violence against women. Some of it has to do with culture, some of it has to do with religion, but could you comment, each of the directors, on the presence of the violence against women in your countries and in the play, and how you might address it through theatrical production? I mean, I saw that in Zerihun's play, for example, you had singing. Like, singing is one way to kind of relieve the tension. But how are you going to deal with this challenge of ongoing violence against women in all of your countries, including here? Anyone can answer, just open your mic.
I think I would allow the senior directors to speak first, and then I'll talk.
Manyazewal or Mbala, have you anything to say on that? I know that each of you are activists in your own way.
Okay. Actually, it's clear in such conflict areas, the main victims are women. And even when I do Mother Courage, even if it is not on the level of ruin. It was the women who were victimized, the mother herself and her daughter. So it's clear in almost any conflict, it is the women who suffer the most. So the play, Ruined, showed this delicately and very, very emotionally. So I see no problem portraying that. Probably it will be very painful for people watching this, sharing their experience, sharing the emotion. Apart from that, I see no problem mounting this play.
Mbala, you had commented on how the violence was also against men as well as women. Would you like to say anything in response to that question?
Oh, yeah. My attempt in producing it and the one that was done in 2016 stressed the role of music, the role of singing, because it's a very powerful medium to express the pain and the trouble in which people are. So music is very, very much part of this production. My version, the one I wanted to produce here, was basically a musical. I changed the play into a musical because I thought that music is embedded in the violence in the Congo. It's embedded, and especially when you consider women. When you listen to women at the Panzi Hospital, for example, they use music as a way of liberating themselves from the pain, from the shame they go through. And they dance because it's healing, and they perform because it's healing. So I think that music and singing is very important in this play, and it has to be stressed beyond what Lil Notage planned. At least for us as African, I think that we need to do that. That's what my take is.
That's a really important comment. I'm going to turn to Zedihun in just a second. That's a really important comment because I think that we talk a lot about trauma, and the American tendency is to like, oh, we're doing a play that's going to put people into trauma, so we'll have a conversation about it. But I think in many contexts, it is the song and the dance that has an element of what we call musical, that is a way of releasing the trauma and also being able to bring the community together to process. Because the goal of these projects is not just to inspire trauma or to relive a history that everyone knows, but rather to be a form of healing and reconciliation that can happen through the embodiment, through people actually putting their own bodies in the space of reconciliation. Zedihun.
My understanding of women in this play is I want to understand it, or I do understand it in a different perspective. Whenever I stage the play or when I translate the play, I usually tend to make the woman more powerful in a different version, different perspective. For example, using music is also one method of challenging themselves and then going away from the trouble. In the other way, for example, if we see one of the characters, she will make a suicide at the end of one of the scenes. I never thought that was a depressing moment or like a challenge, but I thought it is also one way of liberating herself from the challenge that she's facing. And the third way, for example, if we see Mama Nadi, she became powerful in everything she does. That's also one of the way to challenge the status quo or to challenge the problems that's happening in the scene. So in different perspectives, the play gives us ample experience of women to protect themselves or to protect themselves from the challenge that they are facing in the story. So whenever we see this type of situation, for example, the challenge of women, I think it's important also to understand the context of the play, and then the context of where we're staging the play. So in one way, we show them through the stories. In another way, as Manazwal was saying before, through discussions after the performance. So we can make the challenges of women an issue, and then communicate with the audience and also other possibly decision makers in the environment.
Are there any final closing remarks from any of the panelists before we open it up to the general community?
Well, I think I will try again to bring video so you can see me. That's the problem. Yeah, the connection here is totally unstable, so that's why I switched to only voice. The final comment I would say that is, this play won awards in the US, and this play needs to win awards in Africa too, because it's talking about important situations happening to women first, but also to men in general in Africa. In almost all violent situations in Africa, we have the same thing happening ever again and again and again. And I think that this play needs to know more productions, and people need to talk about it more. And even, I would say, develop strong scholarship around this play, dealing with the reaction of artists to wars and violence. That would be my take about this play.
I have a question from Kelly Askew. It says, thank you so much for such thoughtful and important artistic labor. Would you be willing to assess the impact on audiences? Is there an active community of reviewers in both countries to respond to this work?
If I speak about the Ethiopian experience, we didn't assess the audience feedback yet, because it was not premiered yet at the Ethiopian National Theatre. But from our experience in the Ethiopian theatre scene here at Addis Ababa, whether it is at the Ethiopian National Theatre or other theatres like Hagar Fikr or Municipality Theatre, we have a very vibrant audience, and people who can understand the concept and the idea of the play, and then who can respond to it. I think Manezwal will talk, because I observed it, as you also was an audience at the Mother Courage, as you have seen. There was so many people who were attending the performances, and they're responding to the performances. We also have a very good, vibrant media, radio and television, who do reviews and reflections on plays that can also support the impact on the audience, and then attract audiences to come to the theater. We also have a good audience in regional cities, where we hope to tour our performances, and then we hope we can get a very good reaction from them.
Yes, and I will say my response to seeing Mother Courage, I was so pleased. It was people lined up for blocks, trying to get in to see the production in a sold-out house for multiple weekends in Addis. So there's definitely an interest and a conversation happening around the play productions. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say the same thing here in Kinshasa. Although we have a different economic situation that is affecting theater and performance in general here, so that most venues if not all the venues which were intended for theater have become funerarium. That's where people organize their funerals, at least until up to the COVID, because the government has decided to stop that, and probably will see the owners reverting back to hosting theater performance. So that's one problem. The other possibility is to have it perform under the label of popular theater, which is on the street and on TV. There are specific TV stations that are producing just play for fun, but there is no serious discussions about social issues. And I think it's also due to the political situation the country is going through. Dictatorship is very much present here, and there is no denying it.
Another question from Laura Binney. She says, is there a trans-African or regional theater company that travels around the continent doing performances in different countries? I think they say no. I mean, I think, so again, there's a question of translation, right? Ruined was written in English. Zerihun has translated it into Amharic. And Bala has tried to translate it into Lingala. So I think that the power of the theater is that it speaks differently when it's in local languages and dialects, that it does. There is no like universal language across Africa, right? I think that that's one of the things, and that's why it's really important to do works that are ethnically specific. I know that even in Ethiopia, doing performances in Amharic is not reaching all of the different ethnic communities within the country. So translation is a challenge. I would imagine that the easiest kinds of communications would happen in performances that are not text-based. But even then, when the music is sung, it's not going to translate across. There's a question from another UMAP scholar, Tesfaye Shutu, and I'm wondering if that's something that he could pose his question live because it's not in the chat. No? Okay, there are two anonymous, one is an anonymous, I'm gonna read these, and I think they're comments more than questions, but I'll read them. One says, thank you, Professor Ngala, for a nice but sad history in the Congo. So bizarre and maddening that there's so much similarity between Congo and other parts of Africa, such as in Ethiopia, as is currently being played out now, and basically parallels with sexual violence denial by governmental parties. God have mercy on us that we're not learning from each other and from history. I hope that the arts, especially theater, will bring in social appreciation and develop the consciousness to a societal level. One question. The second question is it says, question to Professor Gonzalez. It's fascinating to see the intersections of perspective from African-American, African, and European experiences. I was wondering if your project includes perspectives from Afro-Latino traditions based on my own scholarship. I would say that the beautiful thing about a play is that it can be read through many different cultural contexts. And a good play, like the one that Nottage has written, is able to resonate in many different circumstances. But of course, they're very different social, cultural, political perspectives, both about the role of women as well as about war in each of the countries. So yes, the play can certainly be performed in other contexts, and it would have to be re-envisioned and reimagined, much as Zerihun and Mbala and Manzawala are doing here. Okay. So Tesfaye, we're waiting for you to enter the question as a written question in the Q&A. Someone else writes, it is interesting that no African women on the panel about plays where women are primarily exploited. Gonzalez, like Nottage, is from outside of the context. That's a really good question. So that's a really good question. All I can attest to is that there are indeed women directors and dramatists in Ethiopia because I met some at the university. But I think it would be interesting to talk about the role of women in theater in each of your countries, because of course, having women as theatrical directors and producers might increase the numbers of women's stories that are being told.
Well, I may talk about the situation here in Kinshasa, where there are a few women artists, young in their 30s, who are becoming more and more active in terms of speaking out in their plays, but mostly in through popular theater on TV, on the street, but not speaking out openly in the official media, for example, or in what we may consider um, um, classical, or whatever you can call it, performance, because they are afraid. And the violence in the east of the Congo is played out in the media in a different way, where women are sometimes banned for having said one or two words more. I'm talking about journalists, for example. And so they have to keep quiet, and it's painful to see. It's painful to see. Men even do that, but arrest is just outside the door, and that's a serious people, because the people who initiated these events, these violence, are still in the position of power, and they control everything. And every time a woman speaks, that woman is arrested. I can't tell you how many activists, women activists, have been arrested and found themselves being violated in the jails of the security services. And when they come out, they close it, never speak again. There are many, many. I mean, if we had to put names, we can't put them on the public place like here, but there are names.
Violence is a real silencer.
Yeah.
Zerihun.
Yeah. Well, the situation in Manezwal will explain in detail, because he had a very long experience in the Ethiopian theater stage, and he's one of the well-known, respected directors here. Considering the role of women in Ethiopian theater, we have a significant number of women who contributed significantly to the development of Ethiopian theater. I know in numbers they're few, but their contribution is significant, starting from the early 30s and 40s by a woman named Sinudu Gabro. She's one of the pioneers of women playwrights, directors, and she was the one who contributed significantly to the involvement and inspiration of many women playwrights and directors. And throughout the last 100 years, we've seen women playwrights, women directors, and actresses who played significant role in the Ethiopian theater stage. But in numbers, there are still a few. It's not like considering the number of performers, the number of directors and playwrights in the Ethiopian theater scene, we have small number of women playwrights, directors, but their contribution is amazing, and it's very significant. For example, in recent times, we have colleagues who are known playwrights and directors like Maaza Warko, who's now organizing the 100 years celebration of the Ethiopian theater, and she is also one of the key playwrights and directors currently in the Ethiopian theater stage. And Aze Warko, for example, Masarat was one of the key players, actress in the Ethiopian theater stage, And we have so many women recently now. The development increasing, but I hope we'll have so many women playwrights coming out to the stage. We're also seeing a development of women theater academicians in the university. The Edsa University Theater School was only the only one for the long period of time. Now we have almost 10 universities and theater schools all over the country, and we have women academicians coming to the stage, as you have seen last time when you were here. So I hope it's going to develop in the next few years, but their contribution is significant.
I can say that in working there last year this time, it was one of my greatest pleasure to see the women starting to write, starting to think about how they could intervene in the way the history is told, that they were developing a form of monologue that they felt was particularly important to women to be able to express personal stories. I mean, Nottage's play embeds monologues in it. Monologue moments are some of the most important. And so they were thinking about how one could create a monodrama for the women to have a presence on the stage. I didn't feel that they felt like they were, as they say, controlling the means of production, right? But that they were beginning to have their voices heard within the context of Ethiopian theater.
Anita, let me add quickly something.
Sure.
About women, here in Kinshasa and many other Francophone Africa, women are reverting to stand-up comedy. So you see them more and more speaking out, but through stand-up comedy. That's all I wanted to add.
That's interesting. I love that. Mani, do you have anything to contribute?
Considering the 100 history of Ethiopian theater, the participation of women is very limited. And let's say half a century back, it was men dressed as women playing.
You muted, men just as women.
Say we've come some distance, but still on the area of acting, we can say almost 50-50. But when it comes to playwriting and directing and producing, we have very few women. So I think at this time it's getting better, and it will be better in the times to come. But still, it's not satisfactory.
Zerihun, I have a question that is coming to you from both Tesfaye and Anonymous. It says that if you do a direct translation and put some music and song in it, how do the Ethiopian audiences find themselves in the play?
That's a good question. As I said before, the political situation, as Professor Mbala was explaining, the political situation, the social situation in the play or in the story is almost very similar with what's happening in the real world here. So we have a very similar situation where how conflict contributed to the impact on the lives of women who are living everywhere in the country. So when I translated directly, I have also made a little bit adjustment to the Ethiopian situation, so that people can understand or relate it with our own situation. The music is it's a translation, so again, it's very related with us. Even if it's a direct translation, it's very related to us. And then I try to subtly adjust some ideas inside the play, and then to make it more familiar to the Ethiopian audience. And I hope the Ethiopian audience will understand what's happening there, and they're related with the everyday realities in the country.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we're about at time. I want to thank the panelists. This was an amazing conversation for me, not only because it was about the performing arts, but it was also about the power of the performing arts and the power of the performing arts to really speak back to core issues of war and ethnic strife in each of your countries. I want to say to Zerihun Imbala and Mani that I hope that we will be able to continue this conversation in other contexts. I'm very grateful to the Africa Center and to the UMM Africa Week for sponsoring this event. And I hope that we can be in touch in the future about how to do more translations. I'd really like the idea about a company that can move across various African countries, but of course we'd have to see how one would actually realize that in all of the multiple contexts that represent the continent and its languages and its cultures and its histories. That is a big job. But I'm very grateful to each of you for doing the directing work to make interventions in this area. And let's continue to move forward with our projects in this way. Thank you all. This is amazing.
Thank you very much for this panel. And I really want to thank the African Studies Center for supporting this project, and also for the Ethiopian National Theatre for their amazing support during the production of the performance. I'm also inviting all of you, including all the international audience, to celebrate with us the 100 years of theater in Ethiopia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. My colleagues in Ethiopia and Anita, and of course, the center. Thank you for allowing me to speak from Kinshasa. Oh, that's a feat. Thank you.
Very good. Very good, colleagues. We will see each other soon, and we'll continue to make work. Thank you.
Thank you.